Attendee online. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'll call the meeting to order at 8:03. And we'll do roll call first.
Okay, Michael Niven.
Present.
Andrew Grobe. Here. Stacy Hill. Tom Langston. Here. Shirley McElhatton.
Here.
Kristen Reisinger.
Here.
Harry Ressler. Amanda Rost.
Here.
Ian Smith.
Seems like there's more panelists now.
Ian, you're muted. Are you there? Okay, we see you. We're going to say yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And Stefan Strautmeyer. Okay.
Okay. The first two orders of business are to elect a chair and a vice chair for the coming year. But we just talked before the meeting, since there are only 2 meetings left of this board before it dissolves and becomes part of the Parks and Rec Board, we were going to just stick with the same ones. If I guess, do we need to have a motion to do that? Probably.
I'll move for that.
Okay, and
I'll second.
okay, all in favor? Okay, so I think I'm the chair, and I think Stacy Hills is the vice chair.
That's right.
So we're doing that without her here, but I'm sure she won't mind. And I plan to be at the last 2, so I just should hopefully there won't be issues. All right, any citizens' comments? All the citizens that are online.
Wait. What we have here? We got somebody new.
Craig, okay,
Craig
good.
is here. It's like making me do that twice. Okay.
All right, welcome, Craig. We can see your name there. Okay, we'll move on then. The approval of the minutes from November, they're attached in the packet. Does anyone motion to approve? Motion to approve. In a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, minutes will be approved. All right, number 6, the commissioner report. Before we do this, I just want to, Mindy's here as well as Craig. So Mindy was our liaison and has left the commission. I just want to say thank you for your time and dedication. We appreciate your presence here at nearly every meeting, I think. So thank you for your commitment to this group and the cause that we are promoting. We really do appreciate all your time and effort. So, and appreciate being here to help with the transition.
You're also welcome, and really everybody here and the people that aren't at this meeting but on the sports board, we all work so hard in the community for for no pay, volunteering all the time to give our kids and the whole community access to recreation offerings. It was completely a pleasure to learn about all the offerings and all that you do and to help support it.
Great, thank you. And Craig is here online. Craig, I don't know if you have a update or a report for us, but typically Mindy has given us a report on not just sports related things, but just kind of the highlights of what's going on in the community.
I have no big report for this one. Mirror the comments by those for Mindy's dedication. Thank you, Mindy. Certainly miss you on commission. I was on this board 7 years ago now, David, 2018, 6 years ago. I don't know, I can't count. 6 years ago, I think. So it's fun to be back. I look forward to all the good work the board does.
All right, and then the 2024 budget update is next.
Okay, I can just hit some highlights for you on items related to recreation. These are new items funded by the commission as opposed to carryovers or anything like that, or expand. So these are new or expanded levels in the budget. First is the full-time maintenance position at the tennis center. So that's currently advertised. We're taking applications for that. 2 seasonal swim center pool managers. That was advertised, I believe, just this morning. So we're also accepting applications for that. At the swim center, we also have a pool breezeway water fountain. We're looking for a water fountain with bottle filler, kind of upgrade the current fountains, a little more sanitary and convenient. Everybody's carrying water bottles these days. Automatic pool cleaner. So this is a cleaner we can program, and it runs overnight because our pool's so heavily used. There's very, very little time for vacuuming. And since I'm on the subject, it's not a cure-all. It certainly helps. But we also need downtime for maintenance, which we really are not getting enough of, but we'll try to work through that. Security camera system, we got $10,000 for that. That's in addition to a $7,000 carryover, so we should have some robust monitoring and surveillance in place sometime this year.
Is the security system for the pool, or is it for the park or specific
It will
locations?
It'll be used in the rec center primarily, which would include the swim center. But IT is sort of the point on that. They've worked with me and my staff on camera locations and prioritizing needs that we have. So we'll start with the rec center. If there's funding available to start branching out, there is a plan, where we have mapped out cameras in the parks as well. I don't think 17 will get, the entire rec center and park, but I think we'll get quite a bit, and we can expand as needed.
Will any of that be on the turf?
The turf is certainly a priority item, so we hope that we'd be able to get something there. But, eventually we'd like to monitor the whole park, tennis center, platform courts, fields, and so on. And the next and final item on my list here is tennis center elevator replacement. So it's very old, often goes out of service. So this would provide for demo and installation of a brand new elevator. It's not an elevator in the conventional sense where you have, the doors and all the buttons, but it's more of a wheelchair lift. But it will be enclosed. It'll be superior to what we have now, safer, more reliable. So happy about that. That's all I had for the budget.
Anybody else have any questions or anything about the budget?
In the budget, there was another large capital expense. It was the tennis court reconstruction. What numbers were those?
That's a carryover.
That was a
but
carryover,
yeah, it's
So
368 or 9, something like that.
We
so-
funded it last year, but we didn't have enough money when we went out to bid. It would cost more than we had funded. So now we funded with the Indoor Tennis Centers partnership at almost 50%. We funded that. So hopefully that will happen this year.
Yeah, we're close to getting a signed contractor. We didn't have to bid this because we went with someone who's on CoStars. That's a cooperative purchasing program. There's approved pricing in place. We just need to get that contract signed, and then we'll get the project scheduled. We're looking at doing this after the court renewal season. All the contractors are busy renewing courts in the first part, say April, May. So I'd love it if we could start this June 1, June 15, and that would be plenty of time to get it completed, and then get some rainfall on it and some use so that we can actually test and see it. When we did court 7 and 8, it went right up to the end of the season, and a bubble was immediately put on top of it. So we really didn't get that rainfall, which is really helpful for just compacting the material and testing its ability to drain, to look at the slopes. You get bird baths, or it doesn't meet the drain on the low side of the court, immediately where you need to add material. It's very hard to do that when you have a bubble over it. So,
And which courts, tell us where, these
The
numbers
one
mean
and
very.
so these are the bubble courts. So if you were looking at the tennis center from Cedar, 7 and 8 are the ones we did. They would be furthest on the left,
Okay.
furthest pair of courts on the left,
Uh-huh.
9's further down. The ones right there at the gazebo,
Uh-huh.
that's 5 and 6,
Okay.
and then 3 and 4.
So which ones are being done then?
We're gonna do 5 and 6.
5 and 6, so the ones that are just on the right.
They're the next, I would say, highest priority because the watering system has deteriorated so badly. It also needed more electrical work, which we've already done that portion of the project. We kind of split the site work and the electrical work apart from the actual court work. So we've done the electrical. We've got that done ahead of schedule in 2023. And so now we need to do site work and court work.
Well, that's something that'll be very visible too, I think, to the community as they're driving by. Okay, so that's it on the budget. Item 8 is the advisory board restructuring transition planning.
I just quickly wanted to mention that Craig or Mindy may have something they'd like to add. But just as a reminder, we'll be transitioning to the restructured boards and authorities. So there will be a Parks and Rec board starting in April. And this board obviously would no longer exist. There will be 9 residents with 3-year terms. Current board members whose term would have expired sometime after March of 2024 would be eligible to serve on that board. It will be up to the commission's discretion who gets appointed to the board. But at least those folks would be eligible. And just other updates, I will be the primary staff liaison to that board. Phil Avolio will be my secondary person. We'll try to both attend all the meetings, but if one of us couldn't attend, then the other. And Craig Grella, who is the Sports Advisory Board Commission liaison, will then be the Parks and Rec Commission liaison.
Do you know who on this board or how many people on the board are eligible to be considered for that?
I think so.
Spots.
I can tell you who. I'll let that
would be great.
Figure out. Yeah, we can do the addition. It would be Michael Diven, Andrew Grove, Tom Langston, and Stephen Strawman.
Okay. And then the Parks and Rec board is about the same, so it will be.
Yeah, it'll be, so they'll have eligible people.
Are they gonna just join the 2, or do you think there's gonna have to be some paring down?
I think
like that seemed like that was 4-ish.
I won't speak for the commissioner, but maybe Craig could say what they would plan to do there.
Yeah, I think all the boards that are coming together are going to be pared down in some way. I have to go back and double check to see if we actually set the number on each of them. I'll have to double check that. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But there will definitely be a paring down of board members. I think this board, I don't know, do you know, Mindy, if we set numbers? But it would seem to me.
Yeah, there's 9
Yeah.
total, and then the goal, some boards are 3 coming together, 3 boards, so it's like 3, 3, and 3 would be an ideal goal, but one person might have multiple skill sets, and so we intentionally didn't want to write it in stone, because we're hoping broad enough interest that they can kind of have some experience with both. But sports had the most, I believe, just happened to be that way. Well, sports does have the most number of people, so I guess it's not mathematically, it does make sense. So and there wouldn't necessarily have to be a paring down. I think it's more of a conversation, and I'm kind of surprised. I thought in January, the time that Ian was going to reach out and ask if you wanted to renew or not, those individuals. So we had an idea how many open spots, because they need to be advertising now.
They are, yeah. I think they just sent out an email maybe like today.
So if they did that, they're probably assuming y'all are saying yes, but they should be asking real soon. Okay. Whoever is up for it,
What's so I'm on the thing, but what's the carryover? Like, does that go for 1 year, or do we all?
It'll be 3-year terms, but the commission will have to stagger terms.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't know that we know how that'll look.
Yeah, that one gets ugly. It might just be a 1-year term, or it might be a 2-year term because of the staggering lead.
Yeah.
And I should point out that all the names I just read all would expire in 1 year anyway. So.
Well, I think if you're responding back to the email that you're willing to consider continuing, perhaps say, I would do it for 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to do. Like, it wouldn't hurt to say, like, I'm willing to only serve for a year if they're looking for someone to only serve for a year. Or I really want to serve for all 3 years, then say that, I guess, like, share that. It seemed, of those, Stefan is an at-large, right?
Stefan is at large.
Yeah, so there's 2 at large. Mm-hmm. One sport, and one like tennis paddle kind of thing, right? So at least there's a good.
Large, we have platform, field hockey, softball, tennis, lacrosse, aqua club, flag football, and baseball.
But that's everybody, but the people that are eligible
Oh,
are
yeah,
like
I'm
a
sorry.
decent spread.
Michael's platform.
Yeah, so but platform, softball, and 2 at large.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to go back to the. I'll do this before we have our next meeting and send some form of notes. But I think we were trying to avoid the sport placements in the board because it's not just a sports board. But I think what we were trying to avoid was, you know, hey, this is the representative from tennis and this is the representative from football, that kind of thing.
Right. And I guess the way I'm looking at it, Craig, and we'll talk more about this shortly too, about with the field census study, is we're looking at forming our own sports kind of partnership that handles all the sports. And then ideally we'd have one representative from that serve on this board, and they would cover like any field sport. And that way you could focus on more like recreation sports like the tennis center or swimming or hockey, or I'm thinking more of assets than I am like actual activities. So
Right.
in the past, it's been based on activities, and we're talking about, would it be wise to have someone that represents or uses or knows about the golf course, the tennis center, the swimming pool, the hockey rink, like not just, and then one person could represent all of like the other sort of field sports that knows about the field. So that was where our line of thinking was, what would get good representation. Just like you would have, then the people from the parks board would be knowledgeable about the, you know, the physical parks. We would have people knowledgeable about some of the other assets in the community.
That's great.
I would assume that there would be a maintained balance of rec and parks. I mean, it wouldn't get lopsided. You'd have
Yeah, the goal would
eight
be
park and 1 rec. I mean, I think
4
there's
and
gonna be
4, and then,
some type of balance in a net large member.
yeah, but with the thought that like some people are gonna have experience in both.
Sure.
Multiple, yeah, sure.
Right. I think if you look at both the comprehensive plan, which is only in draft mode, and the first version of the Parks Master Plan, which we all but threw away, is and that the second version of that is coming together. I think there's more of a desire to merge those ideas too. You know, not having just say a separation of just what most people would consider park as green space, but park as, you know, an activity space as well. So I think, and I know the Parks Board, of course, wanting to maintain a certain amount of green space and a certain, you know, type of green space, is also interested in better understanding the idea of recreation through parks as well. So I think the coming together of these two boards is going to be very well placed for at least what I've seen of both the comp plan and the Parks Master Plan.
Yeah. I think for us, I think it's just a matter of having a somewhat equal representation of those who are proponents of active and passive recreation, I think is the key. So that one of those doesn't win out more than the other. So I think that's, and I agree, it doesn't need to be categorized by sport anymore for sure, but just somebody that knows something about how the different assets are used, and some people, a mix of people that are interested in both active and passive recreation. So, all right, well, that'd be great. We can look at this again next month about the actual who is there and who's willing and not willing. We may know more about that then.
One thought on that, just I really like the idea of thinking about it in terms of assets. And when we think about the assets, there's, you know, obviously the ice rink, the tennis center, the golf course, and then there's the park assets, the green spaces, the active parks, the passive parks, trails. But if we are thinking about assets, we have full-time staff that are focused on maintenance of the ice rink, the golf course, and the tennis center. What gets lost are the fields and the outdoor sports courts and any other kind of outdoor recreation. So that's really where these resident volunteer board members could have to play heavy, like, oh, you know, the input that you all gave at Dixon at the last meeting, and how the concession stands, the door wasn't working anymore, and things are getting vandalized, and the fences are needing to be repaired, and lines need to be painted. Those are the stuff that I really, you know, I don't see us hiring anybody who are full-time dedicated in those areas. Right. You're there. Nobody's gonna, even if we did, nobody's gonna be there, you know, as many hours as some resident volunteers are, so.
That makes sense.
The advice, bleachers, I can go on and on.
Yeah.
The fields and outdoor sports courts, don't forget that. That makes sense.
Absolutely, that makes
No?
sense.
You're looking like I got 2 heads.
I'm thinking about something else. I'm not even
Oh,
looking at you.
okay, good.
I'm like
He's got a
thinking
lot
about
going on up
something.
there.
Yeah, okay.
I know.
All right, we'll move on then from the restructuring plan onto the field study update. So, I don't know what's happened since, well, a lot has happened since the last meeting because it was 2 months ago. So we have a draft version of the report, that does not have an appendix, but it's about 20 pages that we have shared now with every, youth sports organization. I missed 2 presidents, but we've worked with other people on those 2 boards. So everybody has seen the presentation in the youth organizations and is on board with our recommendations and what we would like to do. So that was a positive. Just this morning, I met with virtually with John Grogan and Brian Catan from the Mount Lebanon School District's athletic department. The next steps on that side of things are to I'm gonna make some updates to it's a draft form. We're gonna kind of try to make some updates based on all the conversations we've had, get a finalized report, share that with John. He's gonna take that to the superintendent and kind of pave the way. And then we'll meet with the superintendent and walk her through that and then go from there in terms of where we go with school board. And at some point, attorneys are gonna need to get involved in that kind of thing. So that's where we are with the school district side of things. On the municipality side, my next step, and was planning on talking about this tonight with David and Craig, figuring out who we want to have in that sort of first initial meeting. We're basically trying to like roll up from the bottom and get buy-in as we go. So I know Craig is the liaison on the commissioner side of things. David, I know you mentioned a couple people on your end you wanted to include, but we'll get on an email tonight or tomorrow and with you two and figure out who we want to include and find a good time to do it. It took about an hour today to walk through it. I prefer that over just handing it over because there's a lot of data and a lot of background, and I think you need to kind of hear the whole story before we kind of send it off into virtual land and not know we're trying to kind of control who's seeing it when, so we can again get the buy-in in the right order. And then once we do that, we'll do the same thing. What do you guys think the next steps are? Do we take it to the whole commission? Do we go somewhere else in the rec department? Whatever you guys think is the right way to go about it, and also get your comments and suggestions and feedback and stuff, and can incorporate that and to keep making this something that's hopefully feasible. So we have made a lot of progress in the last couple months. So I'll get on an email tomorrow with Craig and David and figure out who else you want to include on that first initial meeting.
Okay.
I assume it was received well by all.
It was received well. It was. All the youth organizations were definitely on board with what we wanted to do and what we're recommending. The school district today was happy to get the information. I think a lot of it is just this data has never been collected and kind of put in one place, and they were appreciative of that and the efforts that have been made to do that. So they have a need just as much as all the youth organizations in terms of field shortage space. They've got more programs and more people wanting to do stuff. He used the example of middle school soccer. They had enough kids the last couple of years to have 2 teams, 2 girls teams, 2 boys teams. And he was like, even if we could get the school board to give us the funding, where
there's no space,
where would I put them? They're already like all over the place.
Yeah.
So they have as much as our programs are all increasing in numbers and participation and number of programs, number of kids, the high schools is as well. They've got new girls rugby, girls flag football, ultimate frisbee, kids wanting to start new things. And these are new kids that aren't playing other sports. So it's getting kids that wouldn't otherwise be involved in sports, active in sports, which is the whole goal of having sports. So they are definitely interested in what we have, what we're looking at and what some of the ideas and things we want to do. So it was well received. So and I hope the same will be true in the municipality. So we'll keep working on that. And then, like I said, ideally we'll have a group formed from out of this that would have its own advisory board with what would be more like this, with a representative from each sport. And then one person from that could feed into the municipality board, or the municipality could have a place to go if they had a question about, or, you could do it a lot of different ways, but there would be a group set up to advise whoever needed advising, whether it was the school district or the municipality. And they would also come together and do all the things that we could work together on as sports organizations. There's so much that we could do to make things smoother for everybody.
So I just want a quick question. So I know you mentioned like this board earlier and how they could advise on assets. But, the study is focused completely on fields.
Correct.
So, would it be just for fields or would it be for anything?
The idea is that would start with just fields
Okay.
and that we would have, the advisory board would be for fields to start. But once we got, if we were able to do what we want to do and do it successfully, then ideally we would add on other components. But that's why I think, and I would like to have, in an ideal world, 6 to 9 times a year, like this board, this fields people all meet.
Mhm.
And then maybe twice a year you add in basketball, wrestling,
The
swimming,
sports are a whole
hockey,
different-
like everything else, just to have like a twice a year, like what do we, like one example that's a big pet peeve of mine is coach clearances. So every sports organization needs to collect coach clearances and it's the same people coaching.
Yeah.
And like, why do we not have a portal that everybody can access? Like that's a simple solution that would save every single sports organization, including the rec department and the school district time, if we were all on one portal, right? And so like that, and the same for wrestling, basketball, swimming, hockey, they all use this, these are all the same people in the community doing this stuff. So there's a place for that, for like twice a year to have a kind of best practices. What accountant do you use? What do you do? How do you file your taxes? How do you set up? What software do you use to run your money? How are you set up as a nonprofit? Do you need to be set up as a nonprofit? Like there's so many things that these groups could dialogue on and so that would be the ideal. Now, in terms of like doing the scheduling and all that stuff, I think you got to start with fields, master that, and then hopefully build it out. But that's why I think with the new Parks and Rec board, if you think about fields as like one thing, this group could feed into that. But then you got to cover your other assets. You got to have somebody that knows about the golf course, somebody who knows about the paddle, the tennis center. That's how in my mind I've thought about it. And then also all the people on the Parks board that care about the trails and the passive recreation. I think that.
Dave, are you asking about, and maybe tagging on that a minute, are you asking about like potentially where you have rec programs like the micro soccer and things run through the rec program that would be controlled differently than the more, I guess, how would you post like, and these are sort of like soccer association and flag football aren't necessarily managed by the municipality.
The rec department still manages their
own
program.
times, yeah.
They would just run if we had scheduling under one roof, they would run the scheduling through this.
Yeah, I was just mainly concerned with getting clarification on, is it just field assets or is it all? And that was a perfect explanation.
We talked.
To start, I think we got to start and master.
Like
Yeah,
you collected all the data for fields, you didn't
Right.
do that for.
Right.
courts.
And you need, and at some point we should do it for courts, right? Because courts, I'm looking at you laughing about basketball.
Well, you see,
I mean-
basketball, then we have 15 tennis courts, 4 platform courts.
Right.
We now have 6 pickleball courts. I mean, we want to talk about a lot of data,
There's a lot of
and
data.
much of it is untrackable,
We talked to, I think at the very beginning, we talked to the school district and they were super supportive of the concept of consolidating it down to less permits as opposed to fields, because it goes through the rec department, but it's still controlled by, at least at that time, Chris was still controlling it.
Well, controlling
Permits, or
school
the
district.
school
ones,
district,
but
yeah, so
not.
Ideally, there was a desire to have cooperation between potentially looking at basketball courts, looking at elementary schools down the road. That's something that's on the radar, but
Well, I think again, you have to bite off one component of it, do a good job, figure it out. There's so many kinks and things, and make a model, figure it out, and
Agreed.
then figure out what's next.
Fields is a big enough bite
Right.
by itself,
Yeah.
as you can attest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
but I
also-
know that it's not the only place as we think about basketball courts and rec basketball and travel basketball and ice.
and that also comes into maintenance and closure during inclement weather. I mean, it's all the
Right.
management of the fields as well, though.
So that's, anybody else have any questions about the field study? I think that's our summary, our update. And we'll keep plugging away, kind of rolling up the chain of command here, getting buy-in as we go.
I just think it's awesome that we're now seeing it on this side of it.
Yeah.
The presentation and you starting to talk and show all that data. You guys have put in so much work on this, so thank you for doing all that.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've told everybody I've met with, we have so much data. So if there's something you want to know, I could probably tell you, it's probably not in the presentation, but we could figure out a number somehow, some way with everything that we have. So there's a lot there, but we'll move on then to number 10, the ice rink repair update.
Yep, just want to provide a quick update. In November when we met, I was describing what happened and what we were doing to try to get back to open. So I'll tell you how, I think most of you kind of know, but I'll tell you how we got there. We began installing a temporary chiller on November 6th. Once the floor temps came down, we began rebuilding the ice and reopened the rink on November 18th. The temp chiller operated very well until December 27th. When it started to fail. We closed only for the part of one day, but got back up and running the very next day. Then we got a replacement temp chiller installed on December 29. So we have 2 chillers sitting, one in the driveway, one out in the parking lot. I'm going to recommend they get the first one out of there so they can take it somewhere and get it repaired, because if their other one dies, I want that back. So that's the temp chiller side of things. It's been really doing a phenomenal job. From a skater's perspective, you would see no difference whatsoever. I mean, it does the same job and it's doing it well. We had a subfloor warming system to prevent permafrost and buckling of the rink slab. Designed and installed. That is also up and operational, so we don't have to worry about ruining our asset. And sadly, we are still waiting on parts to repair the compressors. It's been maddening. We hammer on people daily and we still don't have parts. It was supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks. We're over 2 months. And it's not looking like it's going to happen anytime real soon. So we're working on different paths to try to speed up the process. But in the end, our compressors are not being manufactured anymore. They're not, stocking a lot of parts. We never thought that it would be like they told us we'll have parts for 10 years, a couple years ago. And they haven't said you're not getting parts, but they're pushing their delivery date back further and further. So we will see, but it's been challenging to say the least.
At what point does it make sense to bite the bullet and replace the systems, knowing you have to do it in the next couple of years?
It's now, but even if the commission said we're going to approve $2 million today, go get a new chiller system. It would be a year out before they could have parts. So we're beginning that process to try to figure out how we will undertake that. But it's in the works. We know the time is now to start to plan this and hopefully have it as part of a bond issue coming up either in 25, 26. But it needs to happen.
David, do we dare ask the question? I know in the past we've talked about the idea of maybe adding a rink or increasing the size of the studio. Is that something that should be considered as a part of that conversation? If you're going to spend $2 million, does it make sense that looking at expanding the facility at that time?
I mean, we've looked at replacing the studio with another full-size NHL size rink. I don't think it's something that would pay for itself, covering the construction and operating costs. It's not something that's been proposed in the current architectural study for the recreation center. I mean, I think we're so tight on space and parking already. That would absolutely consume parking and not create a need for even more parking. So I don't know that that's feasible. Plus, we're trying to add other assets to our current rec center. That's the architectural studies looking at. Can we add fitness? Can we add a gym, a walking track? Some of these other features that people have said as part of the study that they want. So I don't think that's our direction at this point. I think replacing the current chiller is what needs to happen.
When, if you were to, I don't understand the details of all this, but if you were to put in a new system, would it have some flexibility if if that were to change down the road where you wanted to?
Like, could you move it?
Could you move it to, or expand it to?
I don't think you would move it. I
Not
think you
necessarily
would build in capacity,
To make that as a
but
bigger.
it could chill more ice.
Mhm.
And you could totally do that. You'd need to certainly do some renovations. I mean, if you take down the studio rink, you're gonna have to replace a lot of plumbing and, but you could have, I mean, it'd probably take just one additional compressor. If it's structured like what we have now, if you had 4 instead of 3, I think you would have the capacity to do that. Maybe 5 if you really wanted redundancy. But again, with a new refrigerant or, you know, whatever they decide, and newer compressors, who knows what the capabilities would be, but yes, you could. build
It's just not
capacity.
replacing them without a plan in place doesn't preclude you from doing something
Yeah.
going forward.
It would not, no. But I guess I just don't know that from the studies that we've done thus far, that is a priority, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's actually the first time I heard it. I mean, I probably just didn't hear it. You probably heard it in different circles, but I didn't see it in the Parks Master Plan. I haven't seen it in the Capital Improvement Plan. That's the 5-year planning document. So it's not making kind of the cut.
I remember this goes back when I think they did the repairs maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
In 2017, we replaced the floors.
And they were, you know, the conversation was making the studio turf and making that a multi-purpose turf space because of the size for skating. And I mean, there's been all kinds of ideas shared around it, but I know the one thing they talked about was increasing the size or locker rooms or additional space.
Yeah.
And that's part of the master plan. That was in there, wasn't it? In terms of things they're looking at, locker room.
Sure, locker rooms is high up.
I I think the locker room, basketball court, walking trail.
That's
thing,
all
or
came
those
up.
were all the top.
Right.
So they're putting together like 3 preliminary levels for the rec center, you know, sort of the basic, the basic plus upgrades, and then, you know, the Cadillac, the Mac Daddy, let's call it the Mac Daddy. Yeah, that's the very, you know, highest and grandest plan that we could.
Seven
put
deck
in.
parking garage.
Yeah.
Next to
Not gonna give anything away, just.
Yeah, and elevators for your
Maybe.
cars. Put them there.
Yeah.
Parking is part of the
Big part.
plan that they're looking at. It's so tight, you know?
I just think you look at $2 million, it's a big chunk of a budget from a thought standpoint. I think Lynn Hagan, give her credit, how many years ago, she said, in Mount Lebanon, if you move a flower pot, you move them all. Right? So I think was her comment. But you look at that, I think $2 million of an investment into a facility, we ought to really be talking about what would be the maximizing the impact of that facility. That's a big chunk.
And my big thing is that we just talked about the last meeting is this is coming at the same time as the $2 million investment of turfing the field and adding lights. It's the Seymour. So
Yeah.
those are 2 big things that we're really just maintaining what we have in addition to the some more lights, but we're maintaining what we have and at a price of $4 million. So those are 2 things that, you know, are kind of must-dos that.
Yeah.
And bleachers are like, people are requesting to move the turf around to improve the seating options.
Oh, yeah.
Make it more accessible, not,
Right.
you know, that came
Right.
out,
Yeah.
so that's kind of like all wrapped in.
Sure.
Now we're at 2.5 million or 4.5 million or whatever.
I know that.
I think go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, the main ice, how booked is the studio rink?
Well, we do a lot of programming on the studio rink. So it's a very valuable space for us. I mean, sure, we'd love to have 2 full-size sheets of ice, but we'd need a place to.
I just didn't know if it, like, I've never heard the turf suggestion, and I was like, gosh, would that even make it more of a maximized use of the space?
Oh.
If you could bring it in.
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, that would need to be studied, but it would, it would hurt the ice program for sure.
Yeah, I think all the
Right.
every learn to skate is there.
The learn to skates in the
The little-
privates, we
the
always
little
used it for
learn to-
privates,
yeah,
but
the
I just
little
didn't know
learn
if that
to-
was.
And then
Yes. Hockey.
because the one time they talked about like, is it seasonal when hockey's down, like in the summer? And again, there was, I have to go back and look at my notes, but there were conversations around, because I think someone suggested you could put AstroTurf on top of the ice, or you could melt the ice down in certain times of the year so who knows? But went back, but
Hockey in big 12 months. You know?
Yeah, 15 hours a day.
Yeah. I feel like, from my friends who can play hockey.
Learn to skate.
Because
I mean, you
they-
guys run that how many months a year? Learn to skate.
I don't quote me, but it's pretty much year round.
Yeah, it
I
seems
was
year
gonna
round.
say.
We did it,
Pretty much year
we
round.
did this summer.
I mean, no sport has my
That's
computer
why,
wants to
no
shut
sport
down.
has a down season anymore, that's why we
This
don't have
is
any
so
field
true.
days.
You're right.
Because you play soccer year round.
Yeah, right.
Softball year round, you play.
Yeah.
Cross year
I should
round.
think every sport, 3 months and then.
Yes,
it's all-
then you can play them all.
We'd have no.
Craig, were you gonna say something about?
Yeah, so in 2025, I would be very surprised if the municipality doesn't do some sort of bond issuance for larger projects that we'll do in either later 25 or 26 and then beyond. And I would also be surprised if the school board doesn't do a similar bond issuance in 2025. So I would hope that the work of this board during this year will be to prioritize some of the things. So rather than kind of moving forward with all the things, we try to prioritize a list of some things that make sense and could potentially, if they are bigger items, like things like returfing fields or doing bigger improvements like chillers and stuff like that, or even having conversations about fields and field designs or adding fields or changing fields, that we'd be ready by the end of this year to put some of those recommendations in place, because Andrew, our finance director, will start working on that. He probably already has, although he's not talking about it, but just knowing him, he's starting to line those things up. So I would think if we're going to do something in 2025, and again, I can't imagine we won't, and I can't imagine the school board doesn't, based on budgets, those conversations we'll want to have in place by the end of this year, going into 2025. So just something to kind of put a pin in everyone's mind on, some of the outputs that we want from this board.
Greg, do you think there's any value in, I think historically, the collaboration between the school district and the municipality, I think going back historically has not been great. I mean, that as an example, they did Dixon, and then 3 months later they did the high school stadium, where if they would have bid that together, they would have I think it was like $60,000 or $70,000 mobilization fees. Is there any
Turfing.
the turfing, right? Is there an opportunity maybe for someone to reach out and as we talked about kind of the field person to maybe be a liaison with the school district itself, with this group, to make sure that as the municipality is talking about projects and looking at fields and expansion and funding, that it's in line with what the school district may be looking at as well? I think in years past, it's kind of been two parallel, non-talking. I don't know if that's changed, but historically, I don't think it's been a really collaborative.
There hasn't been a lot of
Yeah,
coordination.
if everyone's
there.
spending millions of
projects.
dollars, it would make sense.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely a huge interest. You can take it, Craig. Yeah, there's huge interest.
Yeah, there hasn't been a ton of coordination in the past. The school board's kind of done what they've done, and the commission has done what they've done, or the municipality broadly. I am the liaison to the school board, and I have started those conversations. The school board will have a new liaison to the commission. I don't know who that person is yet. I'll probably find out in the next couple of days. They just did their reorg before the holiday, where they voted some of those in. So I'll have that information probably in the next couple of days. I have started to have conversations with the superintendent and Grogan and a few of the board members about broader collaboration between the two groups, and no one is saying no. It just comes down to the details. I mean, the board is very much a board like the commission. It just comes down to the details and the money. So I think, again, when we get to a point where this board is making a short list of recommendations and, we have buy-in from the commission behind those recommendations, I think we can kind of massage the school board to the same point, such that if the commission is acting on things that will involve the school board or need some school board direction or even money or coordination, and it sounds like a lot of this stuff will, certainly with fields, maybe less so on the parks, but certainly with fields, then I think there will be more coordination. I just think we have to be really, specific about what we want the action items to be, because the board, it's hard enough to get 3 commissioners on a board of 5 to agree. It's nearly impossible to get 5 commissioners on a school, or I'm sorry, 5 board members on a board of 9 to agree on anything. It's just really tough. So we just have to be really specific about what we want, what we would like their input to be, and really have a good understanding from John and Freeze about, the direction that they want to take it as well. And I think that will help us put together recommendations and discover areas that we can have much better alignment on than we've ever had before.
Anything else on the ice rink, David?
No.
All right, we'll keep plugging away. So I think this is how the world goes around.
A ice rink somewhere that's being dismantled. Sold off for fun.
It went on.
No.
So we need the parts.
I mean, that would be great if we can find one, because we can use some parts.
Yeah. All right, I think we're then ready for any new business. Does anybody have anything?
No, the only thing I'll add, David and I exchanged an email and just on the update of the signs. Dave, you were just giving a 2-second update on the process, or the basically the process you guys went through to create the request for design.
Well, I mean, I can't really comment too much because I wasn't involved in the RFP process, but this board is aware that there was volunteers from sports advisory plus staff plus parks advisory in citing the locations for this initial phase of signage, wayfinding, whatever, in the parks. So I know they created some mock-ups. I did the main park portion of the walk-up arounds. I did not go out into other parks beyond that. They made some mock-ups of the same size, and we, tried to make sure that they were big enough in the right locations. Phil Avolio has issued an RFP to produce the signs, and that's the phase we're at now. So once they get some bids, they'll start to produce these things and get them installed. So that's as much as I know.
Okay. Very good. Anything else on the new business? Any announcements?
I just have one announcement I wanted to share. Just a little background. After a series of meetings with indoor tennis and municipal staff, as well as commission representatives, we agreed that the best way to operate our tennis center would be with one entity operating year-round tennis instead of 2 separate entities with, a handoff every year.
Indoor was having a hard time finding staff for that part-time 6 to 7 month position, and really kind of came to us asking for some solutions. So it was their request. We didn't, put this upon them. They said, right, help us.
Yeah, they were struggling, just in general, I think, with a volunteer board and all the responsibilities that go along with that, in addition to finding any paid staff on a part-time basis is very difficult to do. It's tough to find staff on a full-time basis these days. So anyway, the solution was, and we agreed that not just in terms of efficiency, but in terms of, I think, understanding by the community who's doing what, one place to go for information and questions and things. One umbrella organization was deemed to be the solution, and the way to get there was also agreed to be through an RFP process. So we have a tennis center operations RFP out. It is proposals are due back January 11th, so we're getting close. We issued this on December 1. I think indoor will likely be one of the proposers, so they could change from a half year to full year. As I said in the budget portion, the commission did approve a full-time maintenance person for the tennis center. That's not going to change. We are going to hire that person and assist with tennis regardless of who's in charge. A third scenario, by the way, could be that, you know, the municipality takes over all operations. We just don't know till we start seeing what proposals come in. And then if it is a third party indoor tennis or someone else, all the details would be a part of the negotiation process, you know, how much maintenance and, you know, all those kinds of things. How much would the revenue back to the municipality be, things like that. We did ask that, you know, at a minimum, what in the RFP, we would want it to cover the utilities. Like we don't want to have to foot the bill for the utilities. This puts any contractor as in a very vested position. They're going to turn the lights out when they leave. They're going to keep bubble temperatures at a reasonable level so that, you know, because they're going to be paying the bills.
They're gonna run it like a business.
Exactly. And they need to participate in that part of the business. So
The cost as well as the income, yes.
yeah, so this has been in our newsletter. I just wanted to keep you sort of apprised if you hadn't seen that or didn't understand what that was all about. That's what's happening there. So we appreciate working hand in hand with Indoor Tennis on that. And we're hopeful that in the end, we're gonna have a better overall tennis program as a result of this process.
Are there opportunities with the golf course because it's seasonal to use some of that labor to come over to the tennis center in the winter?
Not real. Well, we did. Oh, I think I left that out of my report. Did I? The commission also approved a full-time, this was like at the very last session of the budget. And I did leave that out of my budget discussion. They also approved a assistant full-time maintenance position for our current superintendent. Could that? Sure. I mean, you know, maybe in the winter there would be projects that they could assist with. I mean, bubble, you know, up and down process is a potential place for them to contribute. I mean, they already contribute, believe it or not. They help with weed control because our superintendent is, you know, the only certified pesticide applicator in the rec department for that part of the certification. So he could put down weed control on things like that, which we can't really do in-house. So we're already cross utilizing staff, but yeah, we could look at that, especially with another person on board.
But yeah, it's full-time, like we see enough tennis maintenance needs, that's a full-time maintenance. It was actually 1.5 full-time maintenance people to do tennis, right, was what was estimated.
Yeah, that was the initial ask.
Yeah, 1.5, so one.
And that's in addition to all the part-time seasonal people that maintain courts on a daily basis. And that's by no means the full picture of what it takes to maintain that place. I mean, it's quite a lot of work. And we still use a contractor for the mowing alone, you know, the mowing and trimming outside the enclosures. It's really quite a lot of work to maintain that facility. And we'll be, you know, collectively assuming that maintenance on a year-round basis, it won't be divvied up between two different organizations in the future.
And there might be an
That just makes
opportunity.
so much sense.
Yeah.
It really does. It really does.
It's
Yeah.
confusing for the community to know
Yeah.
how
That
to,
it switches
how to
or
book
they-
a court. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, it'll be very nice to have.
I think it'll be far more efficient
Yes.
regardless of who's doing it. I think it'll just be better and the community will know exactly who to talk to. So.
Great. All right, the only other announcement would be that the next meeting is February 1st and then our final meeting is March 7th. So 8 o'clock for both, same time, same place. So any other announcements, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 8:57. 13 minutes early.
Good job. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Craig. Thanks, Michael.
Good night, Michael. Hi, Ian.
Oh, and Ian. I forgot Ian was on there. He was so quiet.
I know, he was so
quiet
quiet.
tonight. We couldn't see his face.